We are 48 schools across 14 cities, but together we are one Shawnee mission, because kids.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Shawnee Mission Mic'd Up. My name is Mike Schumacher. I am the proud superintendent and host of this wonderful podcast.
Yeah, good to be back with everybody. Brittany Gonzer, I'm Director of Professional Learning, but in this capacity, co-host of the podcast. So
Host of the podcast.
Excited for another episode.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. You know, we're getting to that part of the school year where things are starting to roll a little bit. Been spending time in buildings, getting to see what our students are learning and visiting teachers. And yeah, this is the good stuff.
We're rolling.
We are.
We're rolling, doing some amazing stuff out in the school district. So I want to talk a little bit about last episode. It was amazing. As we were recording it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a great story for us to be telling. And as I watched the episode, it really came through.
Yeah, I think we both felt a little bit of this sense, like, make sure we do Steve's story justice, right? Like, make sure we highlight just what an amazing person he is. And I think it shined through in there.
So if people haven't watched that episode, talk with them about what it was. Mr. McCord.
Yeah, Steve McCord from Marion Park, their facilities manager, who, you know, we highlighted all the wonderful things he does for their school and our district. And but we also just really got to know him better as a person, right? I think people were so surprised and excited to learn about him as an artist and some of his featured work that we've had here at the CAA and our district art shows. And so people have had questions about, you know, how does he make these things? Where does he get these ideas? So it was cool to get to tell that story of the person behind the work as well.
Yeah, and if you've watched it, if you haven't, go back and watch it. But he's such a humble man. He does such incredible work, not only personally, but here in the school district for Marion Park. And what we wanted to highlight was Judd and his team, Mr. Rimmers and his team, and all of the work that goes into getting those buildings ready to go for our kids, for our teachers, to be back and off and running. And it was kind of hard to pull that out of him.
He's so humble. You're like, no, you got to tell people how great you are, Steve.
Right. and he just wouldn't do it. So we told the story for him. And of course, Judd did too.
Yes.
So a great episode, really highlights all of the work that all 4,000 of our employees do to get this school year off and running. Like we said, we're rocking and rolling now. So a great episode. We also want to talk about a ridiculously positive moment. How about you?
Yeah. So last few days, I've had the opportunity. We had our first quarter mentoring meeting just a couple nights ago, and that was an opportunity to bring together all of our new to the profession teachers and their mentors. It's one of those dates that's circled on my calendar every year, like all throughout the summer. I'm looking forward to it. We get them really, pumped up and excited when they start the school year, and then to check in with them again about a month later. I'm like, I feel like this is time we really got to kind of wrap our arms around them, make sure they're doing great. So it's nice to see our new teachers, but also their mentors.
Yeah.
That job is so important. I can't oversell the importance of being a mentor to a new teacher. So just to have the opportunity to greet those folks and thank them for what they do is awesome.
I came from HR before I stepped into this role, and one of the things we always said is we don't hire finished products, right? We hire great people. They're amazing, but we have a responsibility to grow them, to make them better. And that's what this is, right?
Yeah. And our mentors are incredible at that, and just their voice in the program and how it's evolved over the last few years. And it was just great to see some faces that we knew, but some new ones as well. And we appreciate them all.
That's great. Yeah. Ridiculously positive moment for me.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I've had so many, but I'm going to have to highlight it's homecoming season.
That's right.
So we have 5 comprehensive high schools, right? So I get the opportunity to be in those parades. To this point, we've only had one.
Okay.
It was Lancer Day. Have you been to Lancer Day?
Not this year, but I have in previous years. And wow.
I think it was bigger than ever.
Okay.
The weather was amazing. It was those a couple weeks where the weather had cooled off and the turnout was awesome. Candy was flying. Kids were having a great time. But it is a great celebration of that community, and I love homecoming season. It's such a great time.
So you've got to be in a lot of parades now.
I do. Yeah, I'm getting pretty good at my.
You've been practicing.
Queen wave.
It's all in the wrist, buddy.
On the wrist.
On the wrist.
Mm-hmm. And that doesn't matter. All they want is the candy.
That's true. We'll keep that in mind then. Yes.
Right. So quick recap. Please go back and take a look at that episode. Really, really good stuff. So we've got another amazing episode on hand today.
Yes.
As we're getting into this, let's introduce our amazing guest. I'm going to start over here to my right. Ms. Bloomfield, why don't you introduce yourself, please?
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Sarah Bloomfield, best known as Olivia's mom. And today we're talking about a book that I co-authored with the next guest that we're going to introduce, Amy Soxy, but most people call me Olivia's mom.
I love that. Yep. Amy?
Yes. I'm Amy Soxy. I currently serve as the instructional coach at Merriam Park Elementary. This is my third year in that role. And prior to that, I was a classroom teacher at Corinth Elementary for 6 years and had the honor of teaching Olivia Bloomfield in 3rd and 4th grade.
Amazing. So we're going to get to a lot of that. We're going to tease some of that out. And of course, we are here to talk about the book, Olivia's Legacy. You guys also recorded a Read Across SMSD as well. And so I want to talk about that too, on how all of our students, all of our elementary students are going to get a chance to read this book. But before we do, let's learn about Olivia. Let's tell Olivia's story a little bit. So Sarah, do you want to start us off? Tell us who Olivia was.
Absolutely. Olivia was born in 2012, and Olivia was born with a rare genetic condition called congenital muscular dystrophy, which meant from birth, physical challenges were difficult for her. And at the same time, words came super naturally to her. So she was definitely a very interesting and spirited little baby who learned to drive a power wheelchair at 18 months old. And her voice was always very strong. And, right away she started highlighting different things in the community that didn't work well for her, how things could be better. And she kind of found this niche in the disability community where it started out as a mobility thing because she was a wheelchair user, and kind of what could she access? Could she get on a playground? Could she maneuver around equipment? And then as she grew older and her voice grew stronger, she started seeing other opportunities for other kids with different types of disabilities, whether that was a sensory disability or cognitive disability, visual impairment, things that didn't work for other kids. And she kind of made this her niche where she would talk about how we can all be better.
It's amazing. And Amy, you got the opportunity to teach Olivia and to be there with her. Tell us a little bit about your experience with learning her story and your experience with Olivia.
Yeah, definitely. So my connection with Olivia actually started before she was my student. I met her when she was a kindergartner at Corinth, and I was taken with her because I actually have a familial experience with disability. My grandfather contracted polio at the age of 16, and so he lived his entire adult life in a wheelchair. And he used a power wheelchair later in life. So I grew up looking for curb cuts, for ramps, looking at door entryways, making sure that they were wide enough for him to get through. And so before Olivia even was a 3rd grader, I thought, I want that little girl in my classroom. I can accommodate for her needs. So she ended up my student in 3rd grade. And I was, I invited the Bloomfields in to see our desk spacing and make sure she could navigate the classroom with ease. But being her teacher, I knew that it wasn't just her physical needs that I was going to accommodate for, it was her extraordinary intellectual needs. She was so communicative, her vocabulary, her ability to command a room with both children and adults. I really watched her through our 2 school years together. I also have to mention I was fortunate enough to get to loop with my class, and we kept the entire same group of kids for 2 years. And the advocates that she created in her classmates for inclusive change was incredible. So being able to be part of her journey was an honor.
We've talked a little bit about her advocacy already, and we want to talk about her lasting legacy here in Shawnee Mission, but you're talking about some of those initial pieces about advocacy. Mrs. Bloomfield, can you think of some of the very first things that she was so out front of and really pushing for that equality?
Yeah, we moved to the Kansas City area in 2014. Olivia was actually born in Chicago, and when we moved here, there was not a playground near us that she could access. And she started talking about that very regularly. And we became familiar with an organization that's very close to our hearts called Variety Kansas City. We were Leawood residents, and Leawood Playground was being rebuilt. And there was conversation about would it be accessible or would it not? And Olivia became very good friends with Deb Wiebrecht, who is the executive director, and she said, "Hey, would you come along?" And it was our first experience giving Olivia a microphone, and she was naturally very good at it and very good at explaining to the City Hall group why she needed this playground to be accessible, and the fact that we live here and there's nowhere within 20 miles. There's not a playground that she can access. And once that happened, it kind of took off from there. She actually started getting invited to come and speak and share. And the disability community, she really was kind of the spokesperson, because then she started meeting other people and learning more and adding that in. And she was just naturally very good at it.
It's amazing. Brittany, I've been kind of dominating the conversation a little bit.
I'm listening because it's just such an incredible story and such an incredible person. We keep talking about her voice and just what a beautiful voice she had, and just how well-spoken she was for such a young kiddo. What were some of the things that she was speaking about? So we know she often spoke about playgrounds and accessibility. Were there other important topics to Olivia, other messages she wanted to be sure to get out to our community?
Yeah, I mean, I think she advocated for everyone, which I think set her apart. Sarah mentioned earlier, it wasn't just making playgrounds accessible for those who use wheelchairs. She thought about students with sensory needs, or if a student is having trouble focusing in class. Like, she really wanted to create that sense of belonging for everyone, and I think her classmates got behind her. Her, teachers, the Corinth Elementary staff, she did it in such a masterful way that it wasn't about her. Like, it was about creating a better world. And her favorite quote was, "When we know more, we do better." Yeah. And I think that's a mantra that we all can hold.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anything else you want to add about that, Saul?
I would say directly impacting Shawnee Mission and the Shawnee Mission schools, when we came to Corinth, she had the experience where she couldn't access the playground. And that was something that was super frustrating for her, is to watch her friends. And the staff at Corinth did a wonderful job, I want to say that, of accommodating her and bringing things to the part of the playground that she could access, but it was limited. And she was really good about speaking up. And it turned out that Corinth was prioritized because of a need. And I think that that's a change in the Shawnee Mission School District now. Typically, it was we would run through schools every so many years. And when they were slated for an upgrade, they got one. And now we're looking at more than that. We're looking at, is there a direct need? And how do we make sure that we include the students? And it's just a shift in thinking. It's a small one with a really, really big impact.
I love that call out. I mean, I have this great opportunity to speak on behalf of the district often. And one of the things I do is to tell people about the upgrades. And we can now share that every single one of our elementary schools has, that playground that's accessible, and just because of Olivia. So you should be very proud, both of you. It's an amazing story. Additionally, I mean, her legacy continues throughout the Kansas City area. I shared with Brittany a couple of podcasts ago. I was at the Casey Current game.
It's so cool.
And amazing. So the Olivia Bloomfield seat. Tell us maybe how that came about and what it's all about.
Well, Olivia, a lot of people don't know this, but she was part of the Current from the very beginning. And she actually holds the very first Kansas City Current jersey ever given out. She got to know Chris and Angie through her work with Variety, and they invited her to be part of bringing the Current to Kansas City, and then talking about, with the new stadium, the different elements that were needed there. So a sensory room is one of those, where kids that get overwhelmed with the noise and the crowd have a private space where they can view the game, or one parent can go with them and the family can stay. Because one thing you see a lot is that if stadiums or places in general don't accommodate a person with a disability, the whole family stays home because it's not somewhere where they can be together. So The room is one, the sensory room, and then the other thing she talked a lot about was accessible restrooms, because that is a very significant challenge for people with disabilities. And when you know, and when you don't, we don't realize how much we can take for granted. The ability to access a restroom is something, if you think about, you couldn't do that in an entire day. Would you go out? Maybe not. And so those conversations were already happening, and Olivia was kind of helping to lead those. And when she passed away, the current came to us and said, this is something we want to do to honor her. And as we talked about what that looked like, Amy already mentioned it, but Olivia really advocated for everyone. And so with this seat, we highlight different individuals in the Kansas City community that are bringing inclusion forward. And that looks a lot of different ways. It's not just for people with disabilities. That is important, and it's a big part of it. And the seats are fully accessible and inclusive. But it's also people that are bringing inclusivity forward in other ways, which was really important to her.
Wow. It's amazing.
Well, we talked about how, lots of different groups and organizations are listening, right, to this topic that Olivia so beautifully brought up. And so it's not just our schools, and you gave that example of the current. There are other places throughout our community where we're seeing Olivia has touched and her work has expanded to. One of the most recent ones that's gotten a lot of buzz is at the airport, of all places. Can you tell us a little bit about that opportunity as well?
Yeah, the airport is when Olivia traveled a lot, and we travel a lot as a family, and navigating that experience of the airport is incredibly daunting. Figuring out, when are you going to use the restroom? Can you fill up your water? Is there a place you can change? Again, not being ambulatory, it's a lot more complicated than the rest of us are aware of. And so that was something that Olivia talked about very, very often. And when the conversations about the new airport started happening, this was a conversation that she was again brought into to talk about what are her challenges. And she was really good and direct about what they were. Olivia had a way of being optimistic and assertive at the same time, which is a unique quality. She didn't get mad, but she also would tell it like it is. And so she does have a restroom named after her where her photo resides. And I know she would be very proud of that. There's a sensory room there as well in the airport, and then a playground that is inclusive.
So cool. You mentioned optimistic. One of the things that we talk about here in Shawnee Mission is being ridiculously positive, as you heard of the intro. And I think she's just such a prime example of that, Amy. I mean, would you agree? I mean, just
Yes.
the optimism, that ridiculously positive attitude. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the foundation and your part with it, but also the book. So this wonderful book that we've already kind of teased is going to be in all of our elementary libraries now because of the foundation, because of our foundation, the Shawnee Mission Education Foundation. Yeah. Talk with us about how it got started and what it is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I had been Olivia's teacher for 2 school years, and she passed away at the age of 10. And the Bloomfields asked me to speak at her funeral and share reflections as her teacher, which was such an honor. And after that, I wanted to remain connected with her family. I cared so deeply about the Bloomfields, about Olivia, and I knew that I could just offer my support by being there. So I started going over to their house weekly and playing with Olivia's little sister, Emily. And I had shared some stories that Sarah and her husband, Matt, hadn't heard. I mean, you spend 2 years with a group of students, you learn a lot. Yeah. And so in that time, we shared more stories, and Sarah asked if I would consider writing this book to share Olivia's story and to keep her legacy going. And I mean, I was so honored to be able to do so. And what we found as we were writing it is, this is Olivia's story. She left a roadmap of everything that she wanted to accomplish. So it was our goal to honor her and then to get her story out to other students to impact. So we're so grateful to Shawnee Mission and the foundation for getting this book into every school. And even, hearing just, the video came out recently, and hearing from educators and then from students who have seen it just about her and who are starting to read the book and like, oh, I didn't realize that wood chips could impact a wheelchair in this way. That is so powerful and really makes me proud that we're sharing that story.
It's a really tangible example. I mean, we always put wood chips down, and I mean, just what you think about it is like, oh yeah, that makes no sense.
Right.
Right. So just a really
that and asking why.
Yeah. Sarah, would you mind talking about the title, Extraordinary O, Finds Her Superpower? How did we land on that?
You know, O was a nickname that Olivia gave herself, and she did at a very young age, started calling herself O. And she was a voracious reader. And so that's one thing that's important about the book, and the reason why we decided a book was important, because she started reading at a very young age, and books were a way that she could really just make her imagination go wild. And, you know, as we were writing this book, the idea that a superpower is more than a physical thing, right? And Olivia found a way to really harness what she was good at. And she did things that were incredible because she had a loud voice, despite the fact that, you know, she wasn't running, she wasn't flying, she didn't have this superpower. She is a perfect example that we all can do things beyond what you would imagine if you put your passion behind it and you try your hardest. And so that's really kind of where it came from. And Amy and I had a lot of fun doing this and writing this together.
We did. Yeah. And I think, you know, like there's a line in the book that we all have things about us that are, you know, ordinary or just what we think is, you know, are unique to us, but we can make them extraordinary. And that's what she did. I also, in the classroom, whenever we would have a story that represented someone who used a wheelchair, she would light up. So I think that representation matters too, for kids to see themselves in books and to learn about those who are different than them.
And that sense of belonging that we often talk about, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we've heard, we've talked about inclusive playgrounds and things before, and people have heard us use those words, and we know that was such an important part of what Olivia wanted to impact and, for all kids. Can you guys give us a little bit more information? What does that really mean? So maybe for some of our listeners who are like, inclusive playground, okay, we heard you talk about wood chips. Anything else that is like a major takeaway or that you would use to help explain that to listeners?
You know, I think it's a great question, and Olivia was really good at words. I know we've said that a few times, and the two different words that get thrown out a lot are accessible and inclusive, and they are different, right? And she was really good about acknowledging that. So just because you can access a playground, get on a playground, does that mean that there are things there for you to do? Are there things that make you feel comfortable and make you feel like you belong and that's your space? And so that's really why the term inclusive is more important than accessible, and that's the direction that we're moving. And, you know, making sure that kids that need some kind of sensory relief have that type of equipment. Another thing that gets talked about a lot is fences. There are certain kids that are prone to run, and safety is important. That's part of an inclusive playground, so that those kids can also share in those experiences with other kids.
And I think too, it's that side-by-side play, you know, like giving kids the opportunity to be together. This year, we're talking a lot about our portrait of a graduate and thinking about our skilled communicators. Like a lot of that work happens on the playground.
Right.
You know, they're having conversations about what they want to play. Olivia advocated for communication boards for those who maybe the words don't come easy to them. They can point to, and so it's a way to make connections, and kids are side by side playing.
Fantastic. I do think sometimes that we use those words interchangeably, and really that was Olivia's vision was, you know, what do I mean by inclusive? And I know so many adults who have learned like, oh, I didn't think about, you know, shade and braille and all these things and how they could impact those things. So thank you for explaining that to all of us.
Yeah, you know, we struggled when in the back of the book we have tips for an inclusive playground, and one of the things we tried really hard to do was leave it open because as we know more, we do better, right? And so there's what we know right now, but knowing that that's never, you know, enough, that we have to continue to grow and build as we learn more.
As we know more, we do better.
Yep.
Maybe a lesson for all of us as we move forward.
Yep.
What a beautiful story, you two. It's inspirational. As we're wrapping up this section, what do you guys think is Olivia's legacy? What do you hope is Olivia's legacy? As we push forward.
I think it's, a place where all kids belong, and they, want to come to school every day to play with their friends, to find their voice, and to learn and grow. I mean, I think she really advocated for spaces and places where that kind of inclusive environment could exist.
I agree. I think it's constant evolution too, and just continuing to do better and know more, and make changes as we do so.
I think we're all proud to get to help spread that message and share this book about her. And it's also just beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
It's gorgeous. So.
The illustrations as well. I don't know if we've mentioned the woman who did the illustrations.
The illustrator, I could go on and on, but I'll try to keep it brief. It was special to us because Lena Barty illustrated this book. She is an illustrator from the Ukraine. Olivia was very distressed by the war in the Ukraine, and it was something that she spent a lot of time talking about, thinking about. She read the news every morning before she went to school, and she did a lot to think through how the people in Ukraine were feeling. And Lena Barty actually illustrated this through the war, sometimes without power. And so when she came to us, her illustrations are what stood out to us and why we were drawn to her. But then learning her story, we felt like it was definitely a meant to be scenario.
That's incredible. I feel like every time we talk about Olivia, I learn something.
Something they don't. Yeah.
The story just grows. Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you both so much for helping us share her story, and allowing us to share her story, and allowing us to continue to tell it here in the Shawnee Mission School District. I can't thank you enough. So,
thank you for having us.
Yes,
absolutely.
We're so grateful.
So as we're wrapping up, Dr. Gonzer, we want to remind our community that new episodes of the show will drop every other week on Thursdays. You can check out those past episodes on smsd.org. We committed at the beginning of the school year to tell stories like this. I'm so proud of us for following through with that.
We're having so much fun getting to know people as people.
Yeah. And this was a challenging one, but I'm so happy that we did it.
Yes.
But those are the stories that I think people want to hear. So as you're watching this, as you're listening to this, if you have other stories that you think will be important for our community to hear, please share those with us so that we can continue to get that out and tell the great things that are happening at Shawnee Mission.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about where we're going next with this, Dr. Schumacher. What's our next story?
Yeah. So kind of switching it up a little bit, we're going to talk about MBAs.
Yep.
We use a lot of acronyms.
Value assets.
Market value assets. That was going to be my question for you. So we use a lot of acronyms in Shawnee Mission and in education in general. Yes. Market value assets. So we have a goal of every graduate attaining one market value asset by 2030. We're plowing towards that goal, so we want to talk more about that here in the district. We're going to bring in
goal.
Yeah, we're going to bring in one of our community partners, one of our real-world learning counselors, and talk about that work. So good stuff.
Looking forward to it, yeah. And of course, we need to give some thanks, as always, to our communications team for organizing and helping us to put all of these ideas together. So we appreciate the team, and we've got. We're mixing it up a little. We couldn't decide this week, so we're doing 2 featured photos.
We were not going to make a decision today, so we were given 2 options of a featured photo of the week, and so we're using both.
Yeah, we can't leave one out.
Yeah, so Indian Woods Middle School, big week for them, celebrating all of the great things that their kids are doing. So there's a cross-country meet, volleyball teams, football. Of course, we added middle school cheer this year.
Forget about that.
So they're pushing out all of the wonderful things that not just Indian Woods are doing, but all of our middle schools are doing. And then the second one?
East Antioch Elementary. Look at our first grade friends here. They are planting their garden, right? They're growing some lettuce at East Antioch, and it was just great to see their involvement in that and just the excitement on their faces, which will only continue as it grows.
So cool. Guys, thanks for joining us. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Remember that we are one Shawnee Mission because kids.